Okay. All right. So we're live now. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves real quick? I'm Michael Rogers.
I'm Ross Kukulinski.
And I'm Jos.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'm gonna do the screen share thing now. Let's see how this works. Um, hmm.
All right, I see slides from you, Michael.
All right. Great. Great. Okay. All right. So here we go. So this is like actually the default image from the shower presentation software. I actually really like this image though. So unless somebody like contributes a better one, I'm just gonna leave it.
What are the rights for it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have no idea. I mean, most of Famous's stuff, they do this weird thing where they have a non-commercial license, which is BSD, and then if you use it commercially, they have like a fee that they want you to pay. But this is all for an open source project, so I doubt that that's going to be a problem. But yeah, we could definitely use a new image. Okay. Okay, so this is mainly here not just in terms of like the roadmap, but more of like a statement about what IOJS is in case like people are doing presentations and nobody really knows yet. But just really reaffirming that, like it's a drop-in replacement for Node. It's a community-driven project that is going like incredibly well. And even if you go back here, like this is the community-driven roadmap. And if you go all the way back, here, let's just, oh shit, how do I go? I want to go back to here we go. So if you go back to this guy, this work in progress thing, we'll probably, when it's not a work in progress anymore, when we're kind of done, we'll change this to just say it's a living document, and then we'll continue to update it as, we make changes and progress in the roadmap.
You might want to put a link to the slides itself, or like the GitHub repo in that home section up top.
You see this fork me on GitHub thing up at the very top?
Oh, yeah.
So that's a link to GitHub, and then also here, like this compiled from the roadmap project. It's the repo that's in this. There will be links to participation. So yeah, any link that you guys stand be linkified to something, let me know and we'll get those in. Okay, so what do people want from IOJS? So this is something that we compiled together with the roadmap project. It's a mix of what we got from just people saying what their biggest pain points with Node were, and also a lot of the like company outreach that we did to try and bring in like feedback from businesses. And the top of everybody's list was stability, and what they meant by that was like they're worried that this is a new project and that we're going to break compatibility, and they're also worried about bifurcation between us and Node. And there's a limit to what we can do in terms of bifurcation between us and Node, but we can say, we're going to stay compatible with all of the releases that we've done as well as prior releases of Node. Yeah, people really hate debugging and tracing, so that's really high on their priority list. People really hate debugging and tracing streams, and that's not just because of debugging and tracing sucks, but also because streams have a lot of issues. People really want to understand what the long-term support strategy is. Like we're releasing a ton, or like we're doing a release twice a week. What happens when we take an update and we break old? There's certain have to stick those older, do those lines up to date. Where do people and is it going to be hostile for them to try to get stuff in? Like this is a problem that people have trying to contribute upstream old V8 a V8 that is a year. So we have to care about it and have a strategy for dealing with it. Embrace ongoing standards. So Node was started 6 years ago when the only standard was CommonJS, and then CommonJS stopped mattering. and now it's just sort of like gone in the direction that Node goes, but the language has changed and the way that people use JavaScript has changed. So, you know, this project thing, like a lot of people all around this, and it's very English centric. So feedback from you guys on this slide here.
Having trouble hearing you, actually, Michael. You're sort of dropping in and out.
The audio has not been great, Michael, on your end. But my piece of feedback is great points. But the corollary to the stability part of it, I think we're also very excited about a sense of momentum. So it's the flip side of the stability point.
Okay, cool. Good call. Awesome. Okay, is there any changes or things that we could make better in the slide, do you guys think? Take that as no. Okay.
Looks pretty good.
Okay. My audio seems to work best when I talk in short bursts, so I'm going to keep the bursts shorter. Hopefully that'll help.
Sounds good. I'll try to let you know if it breaks up again.
Cool. Okay, so the stability policy. Yeah, we can't break the ecosystem. We can't break the 130,000 system. So, what can we say about our current development policy that reassures people that we're not going to break everything? So we're not going to remove JavaScript API. We've moved to semver, so we can actually define what these version numbers mean in terms of API changes. And really, the only place that we're doing big, potential breaks in compatibility is in the C++ API. So this kind of describes like when we make an API addition anywhere, we'll bump the minor version. And we only bump the major if there is a C++ API change that can't be handled by NAN. And we're sort of breaking NAN's platform. Thoughts?
I think this is good. I think it's good.
Is anything like unclear? It's very terse.
Yeah, Michael. Other than the horrible audio, actually, I like it. I thought it was good.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to be explicit and say that like bug fixes and whatnot show up as a patch release, but I mean that's sort of what semver is. Do we want to link to what semantic versioning on this slide? Like semver.org?
Good call. We should link to semver. That in. Yeah, slide later as well. I'll just make an internal note that I need to make that change and linkify that. Thanks. Okay, build channels. Fuck, this needs to be renamed channels because they're not builds necessarily. Okay, so other change. Version number on is stable and production ready. We have nightly builds that have a future V8 line up better with the V8 team, yeah, and then we also put any sort of experimental features in there as well. Or experimental might be the wrong word, but any other new features or potential big breaks in compatibility we'll throw into the canary builds before we actually put into a proper release. And then we have this new bucket called NG, which is the next generation ES6, EX7 centric API. And for this, we're really sort of figuring out a forward compatible way to build a new platform.
I think one of the things that's missing from here, which is how do things go from one stage to another? I'm not sure if we necessarily need that here, and maybe that information's all within the roadmap and build system. But if you have something that's in Canary, how long does it take to get to release? Is it something that every time it's in the Canary, it's going to be in the next release? Like, what's the transition for those new features or bug fixes and whatnot?
Yeah, one of the problems that we have there is that we want that to be really fluid and evolve really easily. So if we write up how things land and move around, it's going to be really hard to iterate on that and change it over time. So like right now, what we're saying essentially is that Canary is going to be this branch where we're like experimentally merging the next V8. If people have changes that we are too worried to put in a stable release, we will put them in that canary line until we're confident that they're okay, and then we'll basically port them into the release channel. So it's not like there's any automated thing where once it's in canary long enough, it just lands in a release. It's actually like a more or less separate line of development. Because down the line we're going to have so many changes that are going into the release that once that V8 from 2 months ago is now in a release, and we take it in a release channel ourselves. That merge isn't going to be directly from an old canary, right?
Makes sense.
Cool. And really, this is just to alleviate people's concerns of this is how we are going to test and work with the upcoming V8 and make sure that we're okay by the time that it's stable. We're dedicated to stable releases, all of our and stuff. And then we also have this place where we go and work on the next generation of the platform without impacting current stable releases and without current stable releases impacting the next generation stuff.
One thing I posted a link. So one thing that we've been using a lot of CoreOS stuff, and I really like how they have their release structure where they've got like stable, they have a beta and an alpha, and they sort of promote themselves based on their sort of capability, and that may be something that can tie into some of that build system for this balancing stability and new features. Maybe it doesn't belong here. It's something we should probably discuss elsewhere, but it's just something that brought to my mind.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason that we're separating kind of the channels is that a channel is really a point of back and forth collaboration. So it's a place where you can consume something that you work on, and you can also collaborate sort of into. We may have more sort of like upfront builds than just this. Like for instance, we may have nightly builds of whatever the next version release would be, right? Like that would make a lot of sense. The reason why we didn't go with beta alpha stuff is, one, we just have a bad taste in our mouth from the last time that we called things beta, and we're using the Canary version of V8, and people understand Canary in the web space pretty well, like as a verb for experimental next line development. So that's why we're borrowing that.
Michael, I'm just curious. So, is the difference between the Canary version and the NG version going to be just the fact that the Canary version will be the latest V8 engine, as opposed to NG, which is just focused on the APIs additions for ECMAScript 6 and 7?
No. So NG is totally separate. So NG may be like a totally new-looking platform built on ES6 module. Like it may be a build node in a different way, and you compile in your standard library versions in a different way. Like we're still talking about this and figuring out what the best way forward is, but what it really is it's going to be like its own repository where we discuss some of this stuff and build tooling around it, and we think about what an ideal platform would be for where JavaScript is now and where it's going, rather than where JavaScript was 5 years ago and how we used it.
Do you think putting the string experimental in that line somewhere might help with that?
I think I had experimental in there at one point, but when we removed the build language, it in a weird way, when putting experimental in there, I feel like it made people think that it was a build that you could download, and it's definitely not a build that you can download, at least not yet. And it may never be. It may end up being, a behind a flag, or it may end up being like, some additional tool chain that we're experimenting with on top of for quite a while. So we don't want to commit to how we're distributing it. What we want to commit to is saying, look, this is a place for you to go work on future tech, and that place where we work on future tech isn't impacting the existing stable release cycle.
But how is NG going to track either the stable release or the Canary release? I mean, what's it going to be mapped to?
Well, okay, so at first it's not even going to be a fork or a branch. At first it's probably just going to be newer versions of standard library that we're experimenting with, right? So a new file system API that is ES6 centric. and a new net API that is ES6 centric, and then potentially like a new HTTP API that more gracefully can handle HTTP2 and HTTP1 downgrades, right? Like that's the kind of stuff that we'll be experimenting with in NG. So it may not even it probably won't be a branch for quite a while if it ever is a branch. And it even when it would be normally be a branch, it may not be a branch. We may put it behind a flag. So yeah, I mean you can see why we're not committing to how it's going to be distributed yet. We legitimately don't know.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but we do want to start the conversation about what the next generation of the platform looks like, right? We want to kick that off, so that's what this is.
I just noticed you have a next generation slide later on. It may actually help in like if I were doing this talk, if someone's going to ask like what next generation is, to put the next generation slide immediately after, and then go back to the other roadmap items.
That's a really good idea. I think I'll do that. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Okay. Okay, I'm turning the screen sharing back on.
Hey, Mike. Hey, just a little spelling correction. Separates on your next generation slide. Your fourth bullet.
Oh, damn it. Okay. These are getting to the point where I actually can't. This. Maybe I'll take the notes. Let's see here. Actually, here, hold on. Let me the roadmap and then click fucking, and I'll just start making these edits live. Okay. So the first thing was, oh yeah, we want to linkify some there. Okay.
Is anybody else seeing Michael's screen? I just see. Oh, there it is. Never mind.
Have the band turned all the way down. So that's probably what. I don't know what that link is yet.
It's just semver.org.
Oh really? Okay. Okay. All right. And okay, separate. Where is separate? Where is that at? What was the other spelling correction? I don't see it in here.
That was the fourth bullet on your next generation slide. The first word.
Oh, on the NG slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Separates.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, there we go.
I hate it when that happens.
Okay, cool. Okay. Oh, yeah. And then we're going to change the order, right? So NG slide moves to way after all this stuff.
After the build channels.
Yeah, good call. Okay. All right, good call. All right. Okay, so let's pretend that the NG slide is next. So move to slide 9. Okay, so a new platform for running JavaScript applications. It's going to run backwards compatible indefinitely. So we will, every module in NPM will get the old API and old platform, and we'll have like a forward compatible manner in which you use the new stuff. So some ideas being bounced around right now is, maybe we'll support ES6 modules natively, and they'll get this new API, but older modules might get the old API. We could do something like, the use strict use ASM definitions. We could do a use NG. We're still figuring it out, but basically we'll have some kind of backward compatible manner in which we introduce the new functionality, similar to what TC39 does. So.
All makes sense to me, and I think it's now that it's right after that. I should have just read the slide before we had the conversation earlier.
Well, that's why it's good to move it now to the front. So, okay, cool. All right, I think we're good here. Now I'm going to back up again. So core should enable a massive and diverse ecosystem. It shouldn't be creating these high-level abstractions like we did with domains. So the first thing we're going to do is integrate with trace event, and this is the next generation tracing stuff inside V8 and Chrome. So all of the new tooling around Chrome is going to be using this, and there's going to be these trace points all over V8. So we're going to integrate really well with that. We're also going to document and evangelize like a debugging ecosystem. So we'll document trace event, document async wrap, encourage people to build stuff, and then promote when they do build stuff. And then we want to unify the system tracing endpoints. So we have dtrace and we have LTTNG now. If anybody else wants to do system tracing, we should have a really simple way for them to just plug their tracing engine in without going and copying all the probes, basically.
This is awesome, Michael.
Yeah. This is like really important stuff. And just for your benefit, we had a call about the stuff, and one of the big differences between how trace event works and how system tracers like dtrace and LTTNG work is that with dtrace you get an event and a handler right when something happens. With trace event, it takes all of this information and sort of queues it up and buffers it so that you can post-process it later. Because from their experience in V8 and Chrome, there's just too much information for you to process in real time without impacting the application in a really terrible way. So they like to batch it all up. But tracers like dtrace and LTTNG can get integrated with like the system level tracers, and so they want to be able to do sort of extra stuff at the system tracing endpoint. So that's why we can't just replace, with like the unified endpoint for the system tracers won't be trace event because of this difference, basically.
Makes sense. My only comment on this slide, Michael, is the quote. Is it a quote from you? Is it from someone that we should attribute that quote to, or is it just like for styling purposes you put the little quote things?
It's like
Completely lost what you're saying.
Oh, sorry. It's mainly just to get a block of text in that looks like that in that place.
Okay.
So we could modify to get rid of the quote around it.
I think it's fine. I just wasn't sure if we needed to attribute someone that quote if they said it at something. I mean, I know it's community stuff, but if you're quoting someone, you should give them attribution.
Yeah, I mean, technically I wrote all of these, but what they really are is just sort of high-level statements about the project direction, like that we're all sort of agreeing to. So
works for me then.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, streams. Everybody's favorite thing in the world, streams. Okay, so first, the streams working group has taken over Readable Stream, which is how streams 2 and 3 was implemented. It was implemented as a third-party library that Isaac took on and then vendored in. So now it's part of the official IOJS project, and it's the official IOJS stream module. We don't have to fight to get new versions of it in the way that we were doing in Node. We want to fix all the existing compatibility issues. I think that we actually have between existing versions of streams. I think that what we're mainly worried about now is what working group streams and making sure that we're compatible with whatever the future streams interface might look like in the browser. We want to simplify the stream creation to avoid user error. So for you to write new streams in your application should be significantly easier than it is today, and a lot of that work is already in, but there's still stuff to be done. And the last thing, which may actually be the most important, is to improve the stream. And right now, the performance is just god-awful. Like, it's one of the biggest pain points in terms of performance right now. So we have a lot of work to do there. Like, we've done pretty much no performance optimization work in the current streams implementation. So that's a big point for a lot of people to go and dive into. Yeah. And then, people should check out the streams working group.
Yeah, I like how you're referencing each of the sub-working groups on each slide and with the links. I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, all of them should have some collaboration point. So when we talk about just the high-level roadmap, right now we're pointing to the pull request. And then once it gets merged, we'll just point to the file. So if you want to change it or have feedback, you would just send another pull request. So we want to have like a collaboration endpoint for the community in every single one of these slides. Okay, LTS.